up, enjoy the ride with Crystal Petry. Consulting, so inspiring, pushing you to your dreams.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of 60 Minutes With. I'm your host, Crystal Petry. Today, I have the esteemed pleasure of learning from a city attorney, which most people probably don't even know that the city that you live in has an attorney. So we're going to find out exactly what the city attorney does, the responsibilities, the roles, and how that works and how it benefits you as the citizen. So welcome to the podcast, Sharae Reed.
Thank you for having me.
So you are the city attorney for Beaumont, Texas, correct?
Correct.
Now, one of my former guests, Sean Billery Samuel, whom you know very well, suggested that I have you on as a guest. And he said the reason was that the two of you made a conscious, intentional decision to come back to Beaumont from a larger city, Houston, Texas. My first question is, why was that decision so important for the both of you? And why was it so important for you?
So Sean and I actually went to law school together, and that, I guess, pact was made just one day in the lobby. And what we're really talking about is that we really didn't know. Sean's dad was an attorney, and my mentor and I was golf advisor, James Payne, was an attorney, but really we didn't really have any other examples for attorneys. Like when we talked about career days in high school, none of their lawyers looked like us. And so, you know, outside, we had a very unique situation where we had people in our family who we could tangibly touch and reach out to that were attorneys, but we recognized that that was not everyone's situation, that there were other kids that looked like us that didn't have those opportunities, and so they weren't thinking that those opportunities existed for them. I think I think the representation is a really big thing right now. When you see someone that looks like you in a field or in a position, you think it's more obtainable. So we wanted to make sure that the kids that high schools that we went to, he went to Ozane High School, I went to Westbrook, those kids had an opportunity to see people that looked like them in their communities, working in jobs that were attainable to them. So that's why we made the pact. For me, it was a little bit more intentional. I wanted to be close to my family. I wanted to live and to work in a place where I grew up, where I could really feel the impact that I was making in my community. So that was really important to me.
As the city attorney for Beaumont, Texas, tell me, what do you do? Because I know that we have a city attorney. Most people may not know that the city that they live in has an actual city attorney. So this is probably the first time they're hearing of it. What does a city attorney do?
So it's so funny because I've been with the city for almost 13 years, and my mom and my parents still tell people I'm a DA, which is very, very different. So the city attorney actually represents the city. So just like if you want to think of the city as an organization or a corporation, they have legal counsel, they need legal guidance. We enter into contracts, we purchase materials, we build things. So we need, someone to review and to look at those contracts, to advise. And so that's the function of my office, is to review contracts, to assist the city in making good, wise legal decisions, and essentially just to, provide guidance to our council and our boards and commissions. Very simple.
Your analogy of a corporation really gave me a visual of exactly what it is you do. So are you the attorney for everyone that works for the city of Beaumont, Texas?
So that's a tricky question, because the answer is yes and sometimes no.
Okay.
So, for example, we have several employees, and when they're acting in their official capacity, and I'll just, the easiest way to think of it is if someone on our second floor, that's our permitting office, they issue permits on a regular basis. But if one of those permitting clerks decided that she wasn't going to issue a permit to a business because they didn't meet the requirements to receive a permit, and that business wanted to sue her in the city, I would represent her because her interest aligns with the city.
Okay.
But if that same permit clerk decided not to issue a permit to a business that met the requirements to receive a permit, but she personally didn't believe in that type of business, and she didn't like that type of business, and she didn't believe that type of business should be operating in Beaumont, her interests are now adverse to the city of Beaumont, and she's now acting outside of her scope as an employee, and so I would not represent her. So we represent people in their official capacity when their interest aligns with that of the city. When they are not acting in their official capacity as employees or as representatives of the city, or they are rogue, we do not represent them. So the answer is yes and no.
It sounds like that's splitting hairs for me, and I'm sure it probably isn't, but it just sounds that way. How is it easy to kind of differentiate the two where, okay, you are aligning with the city, I'm going to support you in this. You're not aligning with the city, I'm not going to support you in this.
So it's not always as cut and dry. I think that was a really good example of where it was black and white. But sometimes it's a little less cut and dry. And so it really comes down to whether or not they were acting in the scope of their employment. And so it gets really detailed.
Okay.
Is this something that you were required, hired, and asked to perform in your capacity as a city employee? If the answer is no, then no.
Okay. Your position as city attorney for Beaumont, Texas is not an elected official, correct?
Correct. I'm appointed by council.
So that answers my question. So who do you answer to? It's the council?
So I report to council, and so that's right now, 4 ward members, 2 at large, and a mayor.
Okay.
So a quorum of council is considered 4. So any 4 of council can direct me to do something.
Okay. Why does cities need an attorney? I know you said, kind of in the corporation aspect of it. Is it really just to keep them from being sued?
Well, so that's the thing. I can't keep them from being sued. What my job is to reduce their liability in the event that they are sued. And so people can sue for any number of reasons. And so I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say, oh, if we do this, we're going to get sued. What I can say is there's a higher probability of risk involved with this. There's a greater liability in the city performing these actions, and my responsibility is to help reduce those risks as much as possible.
To become a city attorney, do you have to have worked for a law firm?
No.
Like, is that part of the...
No, actually, this is my first legal job. I left law school and came straight to the city of Beaumont.
Okay.
So I've only worked in an attorney capacity with the city outside of internships and things like that. My official capacity has always been with the city. So no, we go to law school just like any other law attorney, and you kind of pick an area of focus, if you will, and you come work. Municipal law is considered... is more specialized in the sense that there's a certain affirmative defenses and certain rules and regulations that are specific to cities, specific to counties, specific to municipalities. And so it is a semi-specialty in that regard. But no, we're just lawyers like anybody else. So our career paths are just as mirrored or just as unique and different as any other lawyer would be.
You went to an HBCU for a law school, historically black college and university, Thurgood Marshall, a part of Texas Southern University. Was that intentional to go to an HBCU?
Yes, it was. I think I definitely wanted that experience for myself. I didn't have opportunity to do that in undergrad because I wanted to stay home and be close. I had my daughter really young, so I wanted to be close to family. So I went to Lamar, so I did want to have that HBCU experience, and it was the best. I can tell you, no one goes hungry on the HBCU campus. The food was amazing, the people were amazing, and it just really was a good experience. Especially in that time, again, I had my daughter young, so she was in law school with me as well. And I heard, you hear people saying, they can't come to school or they can't do something because of childcare issues. That was never my experience. The people at Thurgood Marshall loved on me and loved on my baby. Evenly and equally all the time. So there were plenty of days when she was on campus hanging out in the admissions office or hanging out in one of my law professor's office while I took a test because her school was out and our school wasn't. And that was, I think, a big catalyst in me being successful in school because that wasn't a worry that I had. So I'm grateful for that experience. I'm glad I made that choice.
It has been said numerous times that going to an HBCU puts you at a disadvantage as opposed to going to a PWI, a predominantly white institution. What do you say to that?
So I think that my experience, and I know what they say in terms of like bar passage rates. I took the bar pass on the first time. I think whatever you put into an experience is what you get out of it. I think if you go into a situation expecting someone to give you 100% of what you need in order to be successful, you're not going to be as successful as you intend to be. I think any relationship, whether you went to, regardless of the school you went to, requires you to put in work. I know people who went to Baylor, and Baylor has, historically a high bar passes rate, so does UT. And they failed the bar. They didn't pass the first time. And you say to yourself, well, how does that happen? They have a high passage rate. They didn't put in the work. And so regardless of where you are, you have to put in the work to make sure that you're prepared. The bar exam is incredibly intense. And so anyone who's going in there thinking that they don't have to do any extra work because they went to this school or that school that has a high bar passage rate is most likely going to be unsuccessful, in my opinion.
Okay. Now, you are the only female on the Council of All Men, and that is the mayor, the wards, the other elected officials. What do you feel like you bring to that situation as a female?
So I don't know that being a female necessarily plays a big role in that. Mm-hmm. I think just in general, I'm a little calmer at times. It can get pretty heated in executive session, and the presence of a woman in any situation makes gentlemen behave like gentlemen. Mm-hmm. And so that's a plus. But also I think about things differently. There's also a big age gap on our council. And I think that, offering a different perspective in that regard is helpful. Because I'm a woman and I'm a mother, when there are things that come up that could potentially have an effect on our staff that are female, they might not necessarily connect to that idea. At one point they were talking about having night meetings, and one of the things that I included in my presentation was that the impact that would have on single mothers, just single staff, because they are the primary, responsibility for childcare and things. So, they're expecting to get off at 5, their daycare closes at 6, if they have to stay later to accommodate council, that could create some problems. And I just didn't think that, men who aren't the primary, caregivers in their household think about things like that. So just stuff like that. It's not a big, like, legal thing all the time. Sometimes it's just really practical, like, stuff, just pick up your trash. It's just really practical things for them, or fix your collar, things that I think that they don't necessarily think, they go. We were taking council pictures, and they want us to wear navy and red, and I was like, okay, we're gonna wear this blue and this red. And they were like, there's a difference.
There is a difference.
There's a difference, gentlemen. They were like, okay. It's just it's that kind of thing that I think that on a global scale that that would probably just kind of go over their head. That I think women are just naturally more detail oriented, and so it's not always just kind of like a legal thing. Sometimes it's just a matter of just being a calming presence and just saying, let's just take a step back. Like I said, we have a very passionate council, and I think men seem to think that the louder or the bolder they are, the more powerful and assertive they're. And sometimes it's just a matter of saying, let's just really try to bring it down and calm it down. And so, nothing else. I just get to make sure that they all remain to be gentlemen in the room, because I think that that's a big important thing.
And it's also important to know that our elected officials are gentlemen.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. They are.
So that's good.
They are. At least they try to be when I'm around.
Yeah, good. Do you feel like being a female in a male-dominated area, and I'm saying male-dominated because currently everyone is a male, do you feel like you have benefited from that?
I don't know that it's a word to use, benefited. Mm-hmm. I think that it's definitely, changed the dynamic of council. Like I said, because they are, it's a male-dominated council, and I'm traditionally the only female in our closed sessions. How they talk to each other, because again, they're trying to, be respectful of my presence, has changed. I've noticed that just in general, and how they interact with each other. So, like I said, if nothing else, I think women, make men behave better. And so if I've done anything else, it's encouraged them to be a little bit more cooperative and respectful. So they are definitely gentlemen when I'm in the room. and that helps. So if nothing else, I've benefited from that. It's made my job easier.
Good. You stated that you have been with the city attorney and kind of in this capacity for 13 years, correct?
So I've been with the city of Beaumont for almost 13 years. I've been in my current position as a city attorney for about 2.5 years. It'll be 3 years, or in January, I believe. Yeah.
Well, happy anniversary! You have, so in the capacity of working within the city of Beaumont and being the city attorney for 2 going on 3 years now, you've worked with women as well as men.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if this is a fair question, but I'm going to ask it. Which one has been easier for you to work with, the women or the men?
That's a totally unfair question. I think it's, I don't think it's a male or a female generation. It's easier to work with a council that wants to work together. It's easier to work and to represent their interests when their interests align. And right now we just have a council that's, again, more in line for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because they're all men or because they all share one vision. I'm going to go with the fact that they all share one vision for the future of Beaumont. And so that makes my job as a city attorney easier because I'm not trying to mediate or trying to, teeter between, the 3 and the 4. So it's definitely easier to work for and with the council regardless of their gender or their makeup when they all align with one goal for the city.
Now, kind of the way you describe it, it sounds like you are a mediator, like in the meetings. Is that accurate? Because I know that as a kind of corporation, I still have that analogy in my head, which is a great one. But you also keep them from getting sued, and if if their job responsibilities are in line with the city of Beaumont, then of course you support them in those different endeavors. But in the meetings, like your everyday, what does that look like?
So in council meeting, sometimes it can be a mediator, but not always. And I try not to try to engage. I think that it's important for council to have healthy and productive disagreements in the public, so that the public can see that it's not pre-orchestrated and it's not something that's for sure, like that this particular council person feels really strongly about this particular issue and this particular council person disagrees with that particular issue, because that's city government. It's not meant to be we're just going to all agree to get along, we're going to all go along to get along. There needs to be the interest of the public represented. What works for Ward 4 might not work in Ward 3. What Ward 1 needs might not be what Ward 2 needs. What Ward 4 wants is not what Ward 2 wants, and that's understandable. Now there are some things that we all agree are just good for the city of Beaumont, and then it's well, where does that go? Where does that resource end up? And that can be something that every ward wants, right? And there might not be the funds to put it in every ward, and so obviously those council persons are going to advocate for their ward to receive that benefit of that resource, and I think that that's healthy and productive to happen in open discussion, because that's what open government is. That's the benefit of seeing your elected official. There shouldn't be anything that's outside of what's allowable by law. There shouldn't be any closed room deals, right? There are things that we can discuss in private. There are things that we do discuss in private for legal reasons and for reasons that benefit the city in the long run. But anything that's public and public information and public discussion should happen downstairs, and does happen downstairs. And so my job isn't to necessarily mediate and control those discussions, but it's to help the mayor, who is the chair of the meeting, maintain order and structure to make sure that we are following the rules of open government, so we're not going off topic and not talking about things that are not posted properly, that we are maintaining our schedule and stuff like that. So it's just, I tell people I don't really have a big role. My job is to serve the council. My job is to make sure that the things that they want to accomplish and the things that they want to get done are getting done, and it's very important for our current mayor. He expressed that we have orderly and respectful meetings, and so helping him maintain order and respectful meetings is one of the things that I do.
Now, when you say downstairs, that is the
council chambers.
Council chambers where the council meetings are had.
Those are public meetings. We have council meetings downstairs, and so those are all public. And then we have executive sessions upstairs. An executive session is just a fancy way of explaining closed session meetings. And so the law allows us to meet privately as it relates to economic development, legal matters, things that if we were discussed downstairs would hinder the city's ability to be successful. So, for example, if we were discussing our position in a lawsuit and whether or not to proceed, and I'm giving legal advice on the issue on whether or not we're going to settle or proceed to trial or what our strategy in trial would be, it would not be beneficial to do that downstairs in public session because, you know, opposing counsel can be watching. He says, well, now I know that the city's gonna do that. So we talk about that in executive session. And if the city was looking to purchase property and we're gonna decide how much we want to spend on that property and we had to discuss that downstairs, then other bidders will say, well, I know the city's only gonna bid that much on that property, so I can bid $1 more and secure the bid. So that allows us to talk about that in executive session as well. So there's some very limited situations where we get to discuss privately things that would, again, not be beneficial to discuss in public. But eventually those things, and I tell people, everything that we discuss in executive session eventually has to come downstairs publicly anyway. So if we settle a lawsuit, that settlement amount has to be approved publicly downstairs. And so those things always eventually come out anyway.
Are you telling me people sue the city?
People sue the city all the time.
Really?
That's why I have a job.
Oh my God!
Yes.
I didn't think that you could sue the city.
There's very few instances where you can, and so yeah, they do. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, I had no idea that people could sue the city. Okay, so pivoting a little bit here, do you feel like women need to take on the persona or the character of men to fit in and to gain their respect and their trust?
No, I do not. No, and I wouldn't recommend it. I am obviously a woman, and I don't shy away from that fact. And I don't pretend to be a man when I'm with counsel or in any other capacity as an attorney. I think that doing so, you lose a little bit of your feminine power. I think that there's something to be said about a woman being in a room and being able to maintain her feminine power and still be able to communicate and assert herself in a way that doesn't require her to act manly. And I think that, you know, finding that and finding that voice is more powerful than trying to transform it to something you're not.
Okay. How do you transform, or do you? I'm assuming, which you know they say about assuming.
Right.
How do you transform from professional city attorney Sharae Reed to personal, just Sharae Reed?
So I tell people all the time, like, I am typically just Sharae when I am not doing city work. So there are times, like in my office, where I get to kind of take a call from my daughter or from my mom and just kind of be me. And there are times when I'm at home and a councilman will call me and I have to switch it back on. So there's a big switch in that. And I tell people anytime if I have my cell phone and I have Wi-Fi, then I can be working. So it is a good juggling act. But because the city never stops, I never stop. At any moment, I can get a call from a police chief, a fire chief, our city manager says, hey, I have a question or I need some guidance on an issue, and whether I'm in my office or on the beach, I gotta answer that question.
And that really leads right into my next question. Do you ever turn off your cell phone or turn off your Wi-Fi?
No. So I have a daughter, Madison, and that's my baby girl, and she's currently serving in the U.S. military. And so since the day she took her first breath, I wanted to be accessible. So my phone has not been off for that reason, and so the city benefits from that. So no, I never turn my phone off.
Is your personal cell phone also your work phone, or do you have two separate?
So I would not be able to have two phones because I would lose one undoubtedly. So yes, my cell phone, my office phone transfers to my cell phone, or can be transferred to my cell phone. But council and the mayor, they all have my personal cell.
Okay. What is I could say latest, but of course it depends on how you're looking at it. The latest or the earliest you have received a call from an elected official, like,
they're not gonna like that. They're not gonna like that question. So my day starts pretty early.
Okay. About what time are we talking? 5, 6?
Well, I'm up at 6, and I think that I think I've probably gotten a call between 6 and 7 before, just kind of like, I'm up and I have a question about this. And then the latest, And in fairness, we did have a night meeting. So it was after the night meeting. So it was, you know, well after 9, but you know, it is what it
They
is.
benefit from the cell phone never being off.
It is what it is.
So, grown-up adult Sharae Reed is Beaumont, Texas city attorney.
Yeah.
What did teenage, middle school Sharae Reed want to be when she grew up?
So, I wanted to make commercials.
Really?
I wanted to work in advertising.
Really?
And I actually went to school and got a degree in business administration with the emphasis on marketing. I wanted to be an ad consultant. I wanted to make commercials.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I wanted to be in print. That was my big thing. And no.
So what happened? When did that change?
So honestly, I really don't know when the shift happened, because I went to Lamar and I was gonna do that career, and I did, and I really enjoyed it. And I was talking to my uncle. He says, you know, like, what does your life look like with that? And is that sustainable for the life that you want to have for you? And at the time, I had my daughter Madison, and I was like, well, I don't know. It just sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And he said, I need you to think about something that you could do that is going to give you the flexibility in your schedule that you want for her. B, give you longevity in your career where you can do multiple things if you wanted to do something different. And then C, that's going to provide you the lifestyle that you want to have. And I was like, well, I don't know what that is. And he's like, just take the LSAT. I was like, okay. So I did. So I studied and I took the LSAT, and boom, I was a lawyer. But yeah, it was a good choice for me, because there's several things you can do with your JD. You don't necessarily have to practice law, but there are a lot of opportunities and job career paths that you can take when you have your Juris Doctorate. So it was a good move in the long run.
How important was that bit of advice in your life?
I think it was pivotal. You know, it was just one of those moments leading up into my senior year in graduation. He just kind of was like, "So, what's next?"
Was this high school graduation or
No,
college graduation?
this was college graduation.
Okay.
So, you know, obviously I knew I was going to college, and so, you know, I picked the major, and I picked, you know, business was like a major, and Lamar allows you to kind of specialize in one area. You could have did, you know, business management, entrepreneurship. There's a lot of different paths you can take at Lamar when you do that, and I chose marketing because, again, I wanted to make commercials. And you know, just having that conversation to him, like going in my senior year, was kind of like, so where are you gonna work? Like, what are you gonna do? And I was like, I'm gonna make commercials. I'm gonna work at places that make commercials.
Right. Like, duh.
Yeah, and he was like, and how much does that pay? And like, what does a typical day in that look like? And it's just like, it was questions that A, I should have knew the answer to if this was something I was gonna commit to, and B, was something I should have kind of like probably thought more about before choosing it. And I was like, I don't know, it just sounded cool when I picked it. And so, like, having that conversation with him, I guess, you know, just kind of said, you know, until you know, like, have a backup plan. So really, law school was a backup plan. It was a
never hear that.
It was a backup plan for me. And so, I took the LSAT, I did well. I applied to some schools, I got in, and I was kind of like, so now what? He's like, we're going to go to law school. Okay, I'm going to go to law school. Got it. And then, yeah, I get out. He was like, now you have options. Would you like to practice law? Would you like to do this? Like, what is your career path? And I was like, okay, yeah, I see this. And, you know, like I said, we'd already made a pact to come home. And so there was a job opening at the city attorney's office. So I applied. And the rest is history.
Wow. That story is unique.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, because most people are like, I want to be a lawyer, and that was never my thing. So if you would have asked me what baby Sharae's job would want to be, I would have said I wanted to be a queen.
Facts.
I was never dreaming of work. I was like, what do you mean? I'm going to be an heiress. I'm going to do all these kind of things.
Yes.
Shop and travel, but wasn't dreaming of like doing physical like labor and work every day. And so it wasn't really until I got to, you know, I don't even think like when I graduated high school that I had like a definite like I want to do this. I was still thinking like I'm gonna win the lottery or something. But you know, when I got to college and I started thinking about like what I'd like to do, I was like, you know, I think it'd be cool to make commercials. And so that kind of like led down this part in business and then marketing. And then again, fast forward 3 years later, and I'm sitting there. He's like, so what exactly? And I'm like, And so here we are. So like I said, like law school was really just more of a backup than my first go-to option. But it worked out well.
How did you hear about being a city attorney? Because I feel, and you spoke to it. Most people, when they, they pass the LSAT, they become lawyers. They think about, working for a major, powerful law firm.
Yes.
I don't think that they're like, I did this, now I'm gonna be a city attorney.
So here's the funny part. So if you take the LSAT, you go to law school, and you're in law school, and there's really not a lot of municipal law courses. There are like, sports law, entertainment law, immigration law, but there's like very little focus on municipal law, even though, it's a focus. So I didn't know that city attorneys existed until I'm looking for jobs in our area. Okay. And I see that there's an opening at the city of Beaumont. And I was like, that looks like I could do that. So I applied. And then I interviewed, and I was like, and he said, what do you know about being a city attorney? And I was like, absolutely nothing.
You did not say that.
I did. I said absolutely nothing. I said, but I'm eager to learn and find out. And he says, I can work with that. And that was the beginning of a beautiful mentorship between me and the former city attorney, Mr. Cooper. So yeah.
What gave you the boldness, because that was very bold, to be like, nothing? Because people lie in interviews all the time. They make up stuff in interviews all the time. But you were bold enough to say, I know absolutely nothing.
So, obviously I'd researched, kind of what some of the, past litigation. I did my research. But in terms of what a day-to-day, like, office-like, day-to-day routine for a city attorney looked like, I knew nothing. Like I said, the only attorney I had really had influence with, or I had worked around previously, had been my uncle James Payne, and he was a plaintiff's lawyer. He did PI, and so their day to day is a lot different. It's discoveries, depositions, it's client stuff, but their day to day is completely different from a city attorney. I can honestly say I do not do the same thing every day. And being in the city attorney's office is different. There are times when I am working from an insurance defense perspective. There are times when I'm buried in contracts. There are times when all I'm doing is advising councils and commissions. And there are times when I'm reviewing and drafting, ordinances for the city. So it's different every day. So I didn't know that at the time. And so I told him, I was like, I know that y'all deal in this, this little ram in this bowl. He was like, okay. He said, but do you know what the day looks like? I was like, no, I don't. And I was like, look, I know what laws affect y'all. I've read and researched that part, but I have no idea what you do. And he's like, okay. And so I think that the benefit in being honest and saying that is that I always think it's important to be honest about your limitations, but B, you have to be willing to change that. And I was. I said, look, I don't know, but I'm sure you're going to teach me. So let's get started. And I think that that's the best part is when you know what you don't know, you're willing to learn what you can.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And really, my intention with this podcast and specifically interviewing you, other than Mr. Sean telling me to, was to let people know that being a city attorney is an option. It's a viable option and it's a thing, but also to give them just a little bit of insight into the day-to-day, what it is that you would be doing day-to-day. So like your mentor, came to you and was like, okay, what about this? What about this? This podcast is going to help someone figure out, okay, I can be a city attorney, and this is kind of what my day-to-day will be like in essence. So thank you for sitting down with us with this. Oh, you read contracts. Do you read every contract that comes to the city of Beaumont, Texas?
Yeah, I do.
Really?
Yeah.
So does it come to you first and then to...
So each department kind of, operates as their own, I want to say, like mini organization,
okay,
corporation. So when they, negotiate and do all these things, they'll send a contract up for me to review.
Okay.
So I review the contract. There's like, this is what we want. We got a good deal. Can you look at it, look it up, make sure it's okay. And I do that before it's executed, before it goes to council. So when we put a contract on approval for council, it's already been reviewed by my office, red line, change in addition. So it's close to its final form as I can get it before it goes through.
How do you get, and I'm saying men because currently the council is all men, how do you get 7 men to agree to a single thing?
That's not my responsibility.
Is it not?
No, it's not my responsibility to get them to agree. My responsibility is to give them all the information for them to make a decision, and then they, as elected officials, need to become diplomatic and reach a conclusion, whatever that is. Like, I have no dog in the fight.
Okay.
So I try very hard, especially in legal matters, to just kind of keep my opinion out of it. I do give a recommendation at times, but it's on them because they were elected by the people, so it's on them to honor their promises to their constituents the best way that they can in making decisions on behalf of the city.
Okay. As the city attorney for Beaumont, Texas, serving at the pleasure of, do you get to openly campaign for elected officials?
I personally do not. I feel like
Okay.
that's a conflict of interest. I believe that my job as a city attorney is to represent and honor whoever's serving in that capacity.
Okay.
And I don't think you can do that if you have some personal feelings about who gets the position. So recently we had a change in mayor, and people ask me all the time, how do you feel about that? And I said, I don't. I serve at the pleasure of the mayor. So whoever is in that seat, regardless of my personal feelings about that person or not, my job is to make sure that they're successful, because their success depends on the success of the city. And so I don't have a personal opinion about that. And so you won't see a sign in my yard for anybody running for office at the city, because I don't. And I hate there's no other way to say it. It's like I don't have a personal opinion on who sits in that seat as a city attorney. Personally, I go and affect my right to vote. That's for me personally. But as a city attorney, as long as the person sitting in that seat has the best interests of the city of Beaumont at heart, my job is to make sure that they are able to, be successful in that role by providing them information and advising them properly so that they can make good decisions. As it relates to county elections, again, those elections, we do a lot with the county, and we try cases in the courts. And so I don't align myself in those elections either, because I think it's important to make sure that you have good relationships moving forward. I do have friends who run for office, absolutely. One of my friends was recently elected as a county clerk, Roxanne, and so she and I had a personal relationship before she ran, and I love her as a friend. Jamie Smith, our kids, he's the district clerk. Our friends are best friends, and so we have a personal friendship. His wife and I are super good friends as well, so we have a super good relationship. But they don't get to put signs in my yard either. But do we have a personal relationship? Absolutely. And I think that there's a big difference when you separate me as a person and me as a city attorney. But in all regards, my yard is a nonpartisan, neutral space. Do I attend political functions? I absolutely do, and I attend those both in my capacity as city attorney and personally when invited. But I try not to publicly announce a support for any particular candidate.
And Roxanne, she was a guest on the podcast.
Oh, nice.
Yes. She's amazing.
She is.
We love Roxanne.
We do.
We love Roxanne.
We do. Yes, Roxanne is amazing.
So tell me about your staff, their titles and kind of their responsibilities and how you guys work together.
So I have one of the best staffs in the city.
Okay,
so plug for my staff. I do. So I have a legal secretary, sits at the front desk, and she just kind of manages the office, almost like an office manager, but she's the gatekeeper. No one gets past her. That's Ms. Hudson. I have a legal assistant, Lauren. Lauren keeps my life in line. She's very, very organized and detailed. She keeps everything going, and so she sits right outside my door. She kind of like the gatekeeper to my office. So if you get past Ms. Sherry, you still got to get past Lauren. She runs a tight ship. I have a paralegal, Stephanie. Stephanie is probably one of the smartest people I have on my staff. And she's probably the most detailed. She manages the docket for myself and my 3 other attorneys in my office. And so she has a huge load. And she's amazing. Marissa is our liability administrator. Currently the city is self-insured, so anytime there's a claim filed against the city, Marissa reviews that to see if there's any city liability attached to it, and she helps manage and settle those claims as well. I have Chase, he's one of our attorneys on staff, as well as Tom. They work in office with me, and they kind of deal with the day-to-day general stuff in the city. Judy is our police legal advisor, so the police have a lot of stuff, so they get an attorney just for themselves. I love the chief, but they get an attorney just for themselves, and so she's over there with them daily, helping advise and work on those issues. I have a municipal court prosecutor. So if you get a ticket, you'll get to meet Ms. Colbert, Kelly Colbert. She works in municipal court, and she has an assistant as well, Chastity. And so they work with the public on municipal court tickets on a daily basis. We just added a position for a compliance officer. Recently, our office took on the role of just kind of being more proactive and making enhancing our safety here in the city to reduce accidents and reduce claims. So I'll be getting a compliance officer, and that person will work, with Marissa, who will essentially help, reduce our accidents and kind of improve our safety practices in the city. And so that's the overall, not a big office, but probably one of the most hardest working, dedicated people in our entire city.
So something you said, I had no idea. The police department has their own attorney?
So so Ms. Rawls she works under me. So all the attorneys in the city work under me, but she is specifically assigned to the police.
Is that the case? And I know we're in Beaumont, Texas, but is that the case nationwide? Like each
No.
police department
So
has?
that is a common position. Police legal advisor is a common position.
Okay.
Not every city recognizes that position. Some cities have what they call a labor and employment attorney. So that one or a civil service attorney, and so that particular attorney would deal with both police and fire or anyone under civil service. But we have a police in our city. We have a police legal advisor. So she's specifically for the police chief. So he gets his own attorney.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah. So all she does is police issues. Yeah.
Okay. What is your personal intention with being a city attorney?
I just want to leave it better than I found it. I tell people all the time. This is my home. I grew up here. My family's here. I originally came home to be closer to my grandmother, and so every day, she's since passed, but every day, since I've been home and since I've been here, and it's just been my intention to make her proud, make my family proud, to make a difference in the community where I live and where I serve.
What is the educational pathway if someone wants to become specifically a city attorney? I know you said you went to Lamar University, which is located in Beaumont, Texas, but you majored in business administration.
Yeah.
So can your undergrad be anything you want?
Yeah. So most people think you have to study government or political science.
Yes.
No. So you can study anything and go to law school. You just have to do well.
Okay.
You have to have a good GPA and then you go to law school. But you can really focus on anything. And I think one of the benefits to me having a business background is that I do understand how a business works. Right. And so that's a different aspect that I bring into being a city attorney. My minor, in undergrad was in communications, and the city just recently started a communications department, and so I have a insight into that. So when she wants to kind of put out some things, I understand what she wants to do from a communications perspective, and then I can tone it down from a legal perspective, but still get her where she needs to be. I'm like, I see what you're doing, but we're gonna do it this way. So she's like, oh, okay, and she's like, so because it is when you have a one-track mind. First thing, your communications, or you're a promoter or you want to present it this way, and you don't always think about the legal aspect of it. And so
it's true.
So I can kind of say, I see what you're doing. I see it, because we have that same educational background, but then I can tweak it to where it meets the legal safety protocols that we need to kind of get in that. So you can say, it sounds better to say free water, that sounds great, right? And that's a good
it is.
And people are like, I get free water. No. So it's not free. We're giving it at a reduced rate, or we're doing, you have to kind of, have those caveats and those understandings, and they're like, oh, okay. So, it sounds good to say it's a good clickbait, it's a good thing, but it's misleading. So,
yes.
And so you don't want people to say, well, you said it was free. We did. So you have to mean what you say and say what you mean if you're going to do those type of things. And so that's kind of, the difference in that.
Okay, so you have to, and I know that's an absolute word, you have to have a 4-year undergrad and then law school after that, correct?
So you just so people say 4 years, and it's weird because I did undergrad in 3. You have to have you have to have a bachelor degree. You have to have a 4-year degree. So however long it takes you to get it. Take some people longer, some people less. No judgment. You just have to be able to have that 4-year degree, a bachelor's, associate, and then you can apply to law school. Okay. And law school is typically a 3-year program, depending if you go full time or part-time, it can be longer.
Okay.
And then you take the bar,
Mm-hmm.
and you pass the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to take an ethics exam.
Okay.
And you have to pass the ethics
Okay.
exam. And then in order to remain eligible, you do continuing education every year. So every year before your birthday, you have to have so many hours of continuing education in ethics.
Before your birthday?
Before your birthday. So every year is like happy birthday and your ethics.
Yeah.
So before your birthday, that's your calendar year is your birthday. So before your birthday, you have to be your continuing education requirements.
What do you think is the most important character trait that people need, and if it's more than one, please elaborate, to be a great city attorney?
It's definitely more than one. I think
Okay.
the best one is you have to know how to multitask. There's a lot of things, like I said, there's a lot of different departments in the city. There are a lot of different projects going on in the city, and you have to be able to kind of keep those things straight. I think being organized is a very big trait in that as well. And having patience. A lot of times, the issues that are brought to us aren't legal issues, and sometimes people really don't need my legal opinion. They just need to talk it out, right? And so it immediately becomes a legal issue, and so they'll come and they'll sit on my couch and they'll just sit, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, we get to sit on the couch.
Yeah, they come and they sit on the couch and they'll talk it out, and I'll just listen, and they'll say, that's not really a legal issue, right? And all I need to do is this, right? Okay, and then it's done. So
Yeah.
and so that's it's time out of my day that I'm not going to get back, but that's what they needed in that moment, right? And so sometimes just being patient with people, giving people a little bit of grace, I think goes a long way in this position. People who work for the city have a servant heart, and they genuinely want to do the right thing. And sometimes, when you're talking about spending a lot of money, or you start talking about, doing things that can, have a big impact on the city, you want to get it right.
Right.
And for whatever reason, people think lawyers are smart. That's why people all the time, we're no smarter than anybody else. We just know where to go to find the answers. And so, people, in the city are geniuses in their field. They do, really good work. But every now and then they just need that little reassurance that they got it right. And I'm happy to just kind of say, I think you know, and do that. And so I think that's, if nothing else, that's a big thing for our job, is just have that patience and that grace that we extend to other people.
Have you ever regretted becoming an attorney?
No, I love being a lawyer. I really did. It's really fun. Now, every now and then I have a moment where I'm like, I don't know why I'm the city attorney, but it's a little different because sometimes, when I worked here previously and I was just the primary litigator and just kind of got to work on cases all the time, that was fun. Being a city attorney puts you a little bit further into the spotlight where I could not have to deal with the public. Now I'm like interfacing with the public and people see me on council. They watch it at home or on the computer. They see me every Tuesday, and I think they feel like they know me, so they come up and they talk, and I'm like, oh, hi, how are you? And sometimes they're angry, sometimes they're really nice.
Okay.
And just kind of have to take that, and have to sometimes explain to people, I didn't vote for that. That's I don't even get to vote. I don't know why I did that. I'm like, I didn't really get to vote, but okay. And so just having that to interface with the public more and being more in the public eye has been a really big change, and for someone who kind of enjoys their privacy in their personal life, that's been a big adjustment for me. So I don't regret ever being an attorney, but there's some times where I'm like, I didn't think this part of this particular aspect of the job all the way through. But I do love what I do, and I love that I get to do it at home. So the good always outweighs the bad.
Absolutely. You don't get to vote?
I don't vote on council. No. So when only council votes. So when you see us on the dais, it's me and the city manager.
Yes.
We don't get to vote on those issues. All we need to do is advise. So there are times when they vote, and he and I are both like, and wasn't expecting that. And so they don't. We as we make, obviously in our capacity. He is the city manager, as the chief officer of the city, and me as the chief legal advisor for the city. Always try to make sure that our recommendations align with council, and then obviously staff in their respective fields will have a recommendation, whether it's for public works or for finance. And council again has a decision to accept the recommendation for staff or vote a different way, and that happens sometimes.
What? I just assumed. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that we're doing this interview. I assumed all the wrong things.
Yes, we do not vote. Yes, we do not vote.
But you have all the information.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we make sure that council has that information as well, so we pass that along to them. But we are not voting members.
Wow.
Only our elected vote.
Okay. Okay. So this next question I feel is kind of a personal question. As a city attorney, I feel like it's kind of one of those situations, heavy is the crown.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have like a soft landing spot? Because I feel like being a city attorney is a heavy commitment,
It is.
a heavy responsibility. Do you have a landing spot?
I
or
do.
just-
I have an
okay.
amazing group of friends who are excelling in their professions as well, so they know what it's like to be both have the weight of major things on their
Yes.
shoulders, and so I can I do have good friends that I can confide in. They are a beautiful blessing to my life, and I'm grateful for them.
Excellent. Have you heard the term free lessons and bought lessons?
I have now.
Okay, so free lessons are lessons that, somebody else learned and then they imparted that wisdom into you and you were able to sidestep those.
Okay.
Bought lessons are lessons that you had to learn the hard way. So you paid a price for it.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's not financial, it's like emotional or time or something like that. So free lessons, bought lessons. With that idea in mind, can you give me an example of a free lesson and a bought lesson that has been beneficial in your life?
So, a bought lesson, and I have a lot of those.
We all do.
Because I'm one of those who feel like it's gonna be different for me. That's your life. That's not me. It'll be different. I can survive. So I have a lot of bought lessons, but I think that the best one and the one I carry the most and the one I struggle with, I'm gonna return that lesson and not do that again a lot, is that you can't say yes all the time. That sometimes saying no is the best thing you could do both for you and for the individual.
Okay.
And so learning to balance both your personal sanity, your personal commitment. Sometimes you overcommit yourself and you don't do the best job, right? And so that's not beneficial to you or to the organization or to anyone a part of that. So learning when to say no has been a broad lesson that I'm continuing to buy.
Okay.
Continuing to buy.
Yes.
That's my broad lesson. And my free lesson is surround yourself with good people. Like I said earlier, I have an amazing staff, and they make my job so much easier. I have an amazing support group of family and friends that make this job easy. And so, that was a free lesson when I came on and I started promoting up in the city attorney's office. Eventually, I think my mentor, Mr. Cooper, said, this is going to be your office one day, and I was like, okay. But he was really intentional about making sure I hired our staff. Majority of my staff I handpicked, with the exception.
Really?
Yeah, our most senior person in our office is our police legal advisor, Judy. So she was here before I got here, and she's continued to stay with me. But everyone else in my office, I hired and I picked. And so that free lesson was, you need to pick people who can work with you, who will work with you. No one in my office works for me. There's nothing I will ask them to do that I won't do with them. So if I need you to be here on a Saturday, it's because I'm here on a Saturday. If I need you to work late, it's because I'm working late. We have a project that we need to finish. We are working. So no one does anything by themselves. It's my name is on every single case that they file, and my name is on every single motion that they file. So that means we're going to work on that together. We're going to make sure. And it's not a micromanager thing or anything like that. It's I don't want them to feel like it's completely on them. And so when the phone is ringing and I answer the phone because both of the secretaries or legal assistants are busy and they can't get to the phone because they're working on something else, or maybe they're assisting a customer for whatever reason, and I pick up that phone and I say city attorney's office, and they say I want to speak to the city attorney, and I say speaking. It freaks them out. They're like, why are you answering?
You answer your phone?
They were like, why are you answering the phone? Because it rang. What do you mean? So there's not a to say. I'm saying that to say there's nothing in this office that's beneath me. I will make the copies if they're busy. I will run the errands. It's nothing that. So no one in this office works for me. We work together, and I think that makes us a good team. So that free lesson was if you hire good people And for, people are like, what's good people? I know that, what's good people. Good person is someone who's talented, who wants to grow and learn in their position, and who wants you to teach them to grow in their position. They want to be good for you, right? And so when you hire them, you start teaching them what's going to be good for the office. They're going to come in and they have that personality to learn and to grow. If they want to be collaborative, they want to work together, it's a good fit for my office. And so there's a lot of different personalities in here, but because they all have a common goal of wanting to do good work for the city, it works. And so those personalities mesh and work really, really well because they all have a common goal of doing good work for me and for the city. And so it's a beautiful thing. So I'm glad that's not a lesson I had to pay for. But I've seen what it looks like to not have people who work well in the office. I've seen that. I've seen that in this office, and I took note of that. And so when we have a position coming open for our compliance officer, it's going to be important for me to make sure I find someone who fits that criteria, who comes in, who wants to work with me, who wants to work with other people in our office, and who wants to work for the citizens of Beaumont.
You stated earlier that one of the reasons, the intentional reasons that you wanted to come back to Beaumont, Texas was to make a difference and allow other kids, teenagers to see the possibility. If you can see it, you can achieve it is a saying that's going on right about now. How important is it for children of all races, Black, white, Hispanic, all races, to see, number one, a Black person that's an attorney, number two, a female that's an attorney?
I think that's huge. And it's a really big thing for me. And I've never turned down an opportunity anytime someone's called and said, hey, can my daughter, my son, my niece, my nephew, whoever, can they shadow you for a day? The answer is always absolutely. Even, it was a lot easier when I wasn't the city attorney. But even now, I try to make those opportunities available to those kids in whatever age group and whatever range. I've had them as young as middle school all the way up to freshmen or juniors in college, trying to determine if they, being, a lawyer is really something that they want to do. And I think it's important both to kind of say, like, this is a day-to-day. It's kind of hectic, kind of busy. It doesn't look alike. I had one student shadow me for a week. And she was just like, by Friday, she was like, I'm tired. She was like, you're busy. I was like, goodness, we don't have a lot today. She was like, finally. She had me on a busy week. It was a lot to do. She was like, when do you just, like, not do?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it gets busy. And so I was like, well, Friday we go to lunch. Do you want to go to lunch? She's like, yes. She's like, let's do something fun. Because, she was, I fed her every day, but it was like, okay, we're going to eat lunch now because we have to go to this meeting later. She was like, I have to go too. I was like, yeah, you want to see what it's like? She was like, I want to take a nap. And so it was, it was fun for, for them to kind of see. And like I said, she got it for a week. Most of them only hang with me for a day. And she, she got the full treatment. But just to kind of see, the day-to-day for an attorney, a day-to-day for a city attorney. And then the caveat to that is the day-to-day for a mom and for a woman. That's a lot different. So there are times when I'm going to step out because I need to take a call from Madison who's having a freak out. She just joined the military, but before that she was she was in college and she would have a freak out about an exam. I didn't get the right thing, and I was like, okay, and so you still have to manage being a mom and being the attorney. So like them getting to see that work-life balance in action is important. I think one of the best questions that I had someone ask me, she was like, what do you do when you just need to like turn off? She's like, when you don't want to be the attorney, you don't want to be the mom. She's like, what do you do? I said, take a nap and then I wake up. And she was like, okay. She was like, okay, yeah, you take a nap, you can dream about whatever you want to do, but then you wake up and it's back at it. I was like, you really just don't. And so you really have to kind of decide, what that looks like, and that goes back to that original conversation that I was having with my uncle or godfather about, what I wanted my life to look like. And I did. When I took the job at the city attorney's office, one of the best things about that is that, there wasn't really a lot of late hours associated with it. So I could be a mom, and I could, make sure I went to her basketball games, and I could have her on the weekend. Obviously, as I progressed up, that kind of like changed a lot. But I've always been, priding myself on trying to maintain some work-life balance. And you asked me about counsel calling me. Most of the time, like if it's not a pressing emergency or something immediate, it doesn't really happen often. But every now and then there's something that just pops in their head and they say, hey, I have a quick question, and call and we talk about it and it's done, and that's what they're working on right now, and I appreciate that that's a priority for them right now. I do when I'm going to be out of the office for personal reason. I always say, hey, I'm doing this with family, and I think that they've done a really good job of trying to respect the fact that I'm with family, and so they'll send me a text or send me an email whenever you get a chance.
Yes, yes.
And so that's important. So it's important to have good bosses and that respect and want to cultivate a good work-life balance, which I do. And so it doesn't bother me to exit because they'll email and I'll check. So it's bad on me as much, but it's nothing. I think that doesn't prohibit me from having a good work-life balance. It's just having those intentional boundaries for myself, not for counsel, but for me. Like I said, because they'll email and say, I know you're out, so when you have a chance, I just didn't want to forget, and then I'll respond right away. And they're like, but you're out. I got it. There you go. And so being intentional, because if I see it comes on my cell phone, I'm like, I'll answer it later. I'm gonna answer it now.
You can't help but.
I can't help but.
Yes.
And then for me, I keep a notepad by my bed. Like every now and then I'll wake up and there's some things that have been going through my mind. I'll wake up and I was like, I need to do this tomorrow, or this is the answer to that question. Because I'll tell people sometimes I need to sleep on that, and I'll remember. So I'll wake up and say, I need to look.
You really do sleep on it.
Yeah, I need to look up this case. I think that's the answer. This is it. And it'll come. So I keep a notepad by my bed, and I'll do that, and I'll keep one by the shower because some of the best stuff comes to me in the shower. So there's a little notepad by my shower. I write it down, and I'll tell Siri to make a note. But so it's just a constant thing. Like your brain just really doesn't shut off sometimes, and that's okay. Like I don't mind that. It works for me.
Yes, what works for you.
It works for me.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't do that at home. It works for me.
As we get ready to wrap up this interview, I have a few more questions. As an attorney, if you could make one law that everyone had to abide, what would that law be?
I think, and I don't know that it's necessary as an attorney, but this is just me as a person.
Okay.
I would think that everyone would have to do a minimum of 30 hours of community service in a year, minimum. And I think that that's a very low bar because there's 30 days, at least 30 days in a month, so you do 1 hour of community service a day, and you would finish it, in a month, or you could, whatever that looks like. But I think that a commitment to community service would really just change the heart of a lot of people. I think it would resolve a lot of conflicts. I think it would resolve a lot of issues that we have. And whatever that looks like, I think a lot of our humanitarian issues could be solved with a little bit more kindness. So, minimum 30. My gut said to say 300, but I feel like it's a little, but minimum. I think it would increase with age. So I think at the age you're able to walk. So like once you start school, your average for community service would start, and I think you would have to continue that until you weren't able to serve anymore. But I think doing that would just change people's heart, and once you've cultivated a heart for service, how you treat people, how you view certain situations, how you view world problems change.
Yes. Oh wow, that's a good one. That's a good one. Leading from the heart, because that's what that would end up being. Leading from the heart. Okay, so my final question is, who do you think would make a great guest on the podcast? But you have to help me get them on.
I think Judge Naomi Doyle would be a good candidate to be a good young candidate. I think she's our first elected female judge for Jefferson County, and I think she has some great programs that she does in her court with the youth. I don't really admire that, and I think she'd be an excellent guest.
Well, thank you so much for educating me, I know specifically, and educating my audience as well on the roles and the responsibilities of a city attorney.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you so much for tuning in and watching. You can get this podcast and all of my other podcasts on YouTube Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.
Sit back, buckle up, enjoy the ride.